14 to 20 are being given crash courses in rifle drill, taking cover and camouflage, and grenade throwing. The country girding itself for a jihad, a holy war against Israel.
The last resort seems to be a war of liberation. The preceding years have proved to be of no avail to bring the Palestine question into a just settlement. It is inevitable, and liberation could only be achieved by war.
Egypt is mobilized for war as never before in its history. The whole population is ready to go over to a war footing. President Nasser rules by decree.
الجماعة الأولانية لما تضرب الصفارة الأولانية هتتحرك بسرعة لمكانك وهتعمل المضخة وبعدين تدور ورا الخط.
Even schoolboys are training for the battle that many of them think is inevitable. If war does break out, many of them may not live to see the victory President Nasser confidently predicts will be theirs. In the meantime, one of the things they're taught here is the lesson of the Egyptian victory in 1956. They're confident of winning. They have no thoughts of dying. In secondary schools all over the country, military training has been intensified in the past fortnight. Normal classes have been cut short, and boys of 14 to 20 are being given crash courses in rifle drill, how to combat rumors, how to deal with parachutists, taking cover and camouflage, propaganda, and grenade throwing. James Bond films have been banned from Egypt's cinemas, in case the audience thinks Bond, called an imperialist stooge here, is a hero. The James Bond cult has no place in a country girding itself for a jihad, a holy war against Israel. There is only one folk hero in Egypt and most of the rest of the Arab world, and he is Gamal Abdel Nasser. President Nasser strode before the world television cameras and gave his views on the crisis.
نلتقي اليوم بممثلي الصحافة العالمية والعربية.
His answers at the press conference revealed the full extent of his determination, but they also made it quite clear that Egypt would not be the one to start the shooting. If Israel attacked and started a war, well and good. Egypt would welcome such a war. But for 75 minutes, he showed that he is a consummate, but above all, a canny politician. If anyone started a war in the Middle East, it would not be President Nasser. The confrontation with Israel and the threat of war overtaking the Middle East, literally from one moment to the next, has given President Nasser what he's long wanted and never had, the undisputed leadership of the Arab world. The crisis has also united the Arab world, as it hasn't been united since the Suez War of 1956. Against a background of rising tension, the British diplomatic mission in Cairo issued a warning last week. The British consul advised all Britons in Egypt to leave the country as soon as possible. Those refusing to leave were told to stock up with tinned food, fill their baths with water for emergencies, and to watch out for air raids.
Bye, Janet.
The departure of the British diplomats' families leaves only about 150 non-official British families left in Egypt. Of course, there are many thousands more scattered throughout Egypt, British subjects by birth, marriage, or naturalization. If there is a Middle East war and Britain intervenes, all of them will run the risk of internment or expulsion. The British mission itself decided to send home all wives with children under the age of 18. Wives without children and unmarried secretaries stayed behind. The scene irresistibly recalled the Suez Crisis of 11 years ago, when the great exodus of Britons took place from Egypt. The hate of the Arabs for the Jews is at its hottest among the Palestinian Arabs, 2 million of them, who left their homes when Israel was founded in 1948. After Israel, the main targets of Egyptian propaganda are the United States and Britain. They are regarded by President Nasser and the Arabs as the creators and backers of Israel. We fight not only Israel, but the Western powers that support her, he says. Strangely, this has not led to any anti-Western feeling in the streets so far. But despite the anti-British feeling that could erupt in Egypt at any time, and almost certainly would if Britain intervened with force on the side of Israel, the small British community in Cairo goes its very British way. After service on Sunday morning, the small congregation has a glass of lemonade and a chat on the steps of the Anglican Cathedral. I talked to two of the oldest residents, Mrs. Palmer and Mrs. Harvey, who between them have been in Egypt for more than a century. How long have you both been here in Cairo, Mrs. Palmer?
Since 1913.
And Mrs. Harvey?
And I've been in Egypt since 1912, but not always in Cairo, because we lived in the provinces for many years, in Tanta and in Damanhur and Mansoura.
What I want to ask you
gifts.
both now is, are you going to stay, whatever
Don't
happens,
ask us that.
or are you going to leave?
I'm going to stay. As long as the Egyptians allow me to do so, I'm going to stay. I have no intention of leaving at present. If things get very bad and we have to leave, it will be against my wishes.
What happened to you in 1956? Did you leave or did you stay?
No, we stayed.
What are the biggest sort of crises you remember?
I think Alamein, 1942, when everybody left. There was, I don't know, probably a dozen residents left, foreigners.
What about you, Mrs. Harvey? Are you going to stay?
I'm going to stay as long as I can. Don't ask me that, because I feel if I say, yes, I'm going to stay, fate will make me go. So I'd rather not be asked. I don't intend to go unless I have to go. You see, you've got to think what we shall do when we're very old. You still have your husband, so he'd look after you. But
Yes, I know. You have to think of the future as to what you're going to do when you are incapacitated. At present, we are, well...
Hale and hearty. So many
You both
things.
look very well.
Yeah.
How old are you, may I ask?
I am 81.
I'm 78.
Has the British consulate, the British consul told you that you ought to leave?
Yes, he has. I went to see him yesterday,
sent
and he said
two notices.
He has advised everybody in writing that it's to their, well, advantage to leave whilst they're able to do so. I think I'm going to chance it and risk it. And we hope. We live on hope. And I think, well, I don't know, it's very hard to say, but having gone through so many of these ups and downs, I still hope this one will calm over and that we shan't have to go. It's an unpleasant feeling, and you can't settle down to anything. I run this guild, the Cathedral Ladies Guild, where we have a bazaar every year, and we meet every Wednesday to continue the work, making things for the bazaar. Well, as nearly everybody has gone who belonged to the guild, I think there'll be about 4 will turn up on Wednesday. You can't see the future, you can't tell the future. Everything goes on from day to day.
The most significant development of the week in terms of Arab unity came on Tuesday. King Hussein of Jordan, usually called a Western stooge and a CIA agent by President Nasser's propaganda services, flew to Cairo to sign a 5-year mutual defense pact with Egypt. The occasion was as great a political victory for Nasser as it was a defeat for the West and Britain. In the event of an attack by Israel on Egypt, Jordan will come to its aid and place its British-trained and British-equipped army under Nasser's command. King Hussein and President Nasser called in an unexpected observer, the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization, one of the most extreme anti-Israeli politicians in the Arab world, Ahmad al-Shukeiri. In a nation of fiery orators, Shukeiri is one of the most compelling. As the spokesman for 1 million Palestine refugees, he's fanned the flames of hatred for Israel with unflagging energy. The night before the signing of the defense pact between Jordan and Egypt, he addressed a national union rally in a poor quarter of Cairo. Thousands turned out to chant and cheer in well-orchestrated chorus. The danger now is that having taken Egypt and the Arab countries to the brink of war with Israel, President Nasser, for all his skill, may find it difficult to stop them going over the edge. Shukeiri commands the 12,000 soldiers of the Palestine Liberation Army, deployed along the Egyptian and Syrian borders with Israel. Just before he flew off to Jordan with King Hussein, I spoke to him in his Cairo headquarters. Mr. Shukeiri, may I ask you, first of all, how do you personally regard the present situation?
Well, I regard the present situation to be one of a state of war, immediately preceding actions of war. It is a state, not the state of war that had been going on for the last 19 years, since 1948, but it is rather a shooting war in which we find ourselves now standing at the threshold of the war itself.
You think
that is my estimation of the present situation.
You're quite convinced that a shooting war is inevitable?
Well, I believe it is inevitable because the preceding years have proved to be of no avail to bring the Palestine question into a just settlement. So the last resort seems to be a war of liberation. All political ways and means, all pacific ways and means have been tried and have been invoked, but with no avail. Now this state of desperation has brought about the concept of the inevitability of war. Regrettable as it may be, but it is inevitable, and liberation could only be achieved by war.
Cairo radio said this morning that the Arab world had Israel by the throat, by the windpipe in the Gulf of Aqaba, and that it was strangling it. Now, any man who's being strangled is bound to react violently, isn't he?
Definitely, but to act violently, Israel should feel confident that they are supported in acting violently by the United States and their allies. Should they not be encouraged, or should this feeling of encouragement is not existing in the hearts and minds of the Israelis, no violence is enough for them to react against the actions of the Egyptian government with regard to the blockade. I mean, the feeling of danger is one thing, and the ability to react is another thing. I do not believe the Israelis would react in one snap of a finger without the encouragement and rather the instigation of Western statesmen, and particularly President Johnson of the White House. So it really depends upon him for the Israelis whether to move and to take any action or to stay at standstill.
Do you think that the Arab world is capable militarily of defeating Israel?
No doubt about that. We are capable militarily to defeat Israel, and Israel left alone would be defeated in few days. Israel has been established by Western policy. It is made viable through the economic and military assistance of the West, led particularly by the United States, and let alone Israel, no doubt, would be vanquished the next day.
In 1956, of course, this wasn't the story, was it?
It wasn't the story because there was the tripartite aggression.
But even before the Suez landings, Mr. Shukeiri, the Israeli forces in fact defeated the Egyptian forces.
No. This is a fallacy. This is a historical fallacy. The Egyptians were never defeated. They had withdrawn because they knew of the tripartite aggression, and even the news about the connivance of Great Britain and France had leaked before the military operations have actually started.
The United Nations Secretary General, Mr. U Tant, has said that he's seeking a general agreement in the Middle East. What would be your reaction to such an agreement?
I think nothing short of liberation will satisfy the people of Palestine and satisfy the Arab peoples in general.
You say liberation, do you mean war?
Well, I mean war, definitely, and liberation has never been achieved except through war. I know of no liberation movement that had been able to achieve its ends without a war of liberation.
What's going to happen to all the Israelis then?
Well, the Israelis would go back to their homelands. Those of them who are British subjects would go to Great Britain and live there in the United Kingdom as decent citizens as we hope them to be.
What about those Israelis who've given up their original homes to go to Israel?
Well, Israel is not their home. Palestine is our home. And the Israelis should go back to their former homes to which they belong.
Mr. Shukeiri, isn't your insistence on a war of liberation really setting the torch to the whole of the Middle East and possibly the world aren't you running the risk of starting a very, very major war?
Well,
Doesn't this give you pause?
Well, why should it give it any pause? The First World War was started with all its dangers, and the Second World War was unleashed with all its dangers. There is no war without sacrifice and without perils and dangers, and this is one. I mean, the fact that it may develop into a major world war, this fact by itself should warn the great powers to keep away and to do the best they can to see to it that justice is implemented and that the rights of the Arabs should be respected.
But you demand the complete destruction of Israel.
We demand the complete destruction of Israel as a state, and this is also the demand of President Nasser.
Can I now ask you about the Palestine Liberation Army? How many men have you got?
Well, I shall go at the earliest occasion and count them. I haven't counted them before. I'm not aware of their number, so I'm not in a position to give you either an exact or an estimated number, but they are definitely in thousands and thousands.
Where do you get your arms from?
Well, we get them from Arab sources and from foreign sources too. Foreign sources, I might cite China. We get Chinese arms and weapons, light weapons and medium-sized weapons, and we get also our arms from Arab sources.
What's the mood, would you say, of your army at the present time?
Well, the mood in the climax, highly spirited, waiting the moment, waiting the orders to go ahead. That is the mood. Above every other mood. They have been waiting for this moment for about 19 years. So they are eager to start liberation. And our greatest difficulty is to restrain them.